Well, hi, everybody. Ken Johnson here with you. And the weather pattern, while this week not looking too bad, is going to change as we get into this upcoming weekend and then next week and maybe even beyond, as the weather pattern is favorable for several blasts of winter air dropping south to the end of this month and maybe even into early next month. That means several waves of cold weather. Now, there will be some periods where it tries to warm up a little bit, followed by temperatures getting knocked down with some pretty brutal cold air, cold temperatures from time to time. To take a look at what's going on with the weather pattern, we're going to take a trip way up here to the northern half of the northern hemisphere here, on top of the globe. Of course, the North Pole, and this would be northern Canada, the polar regions, the Arctic regions. This is Alaska here. Look at that. Alaska temperature is not bad right now, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But you jump over into Siberia, and this is where the coldest air, or some of the coldest air on planet Earth, usually builds up during the winter months. And some places back here, 20, 30, 40 below zero. And these are just reporting stations. And some of the spots back here in this desolate part of the world that don't have reporting stations, probably more like about 40, 50, even 60 below zero. So if we take a look here, we're going to continue to go off to the east. This is out throughout Canada. Some pretty cold air through Hudson Bay, through the central eastern parts of Canada, and some of that's dipping down into the extreme northern part of the United States. But look back to the west. Look at how much milder it is. I know that you might be thinking to yourself, that doesn't look mild to me, but for this part of the world, when you see temperatures above freezing like this, that is mild weather. And remember what I'm saying right now. Oftentimes, when it gets milder, well, it's not brutally cold, that is. In Alaska, in the western parts of Canada, the northwestern part of the United States, it's usually very cold further east through central northern Canada down into the United States here. And if you look across the country, nothing too brutal tonight. There's going to be several waves of chilly air, cold air dropping southward. But again, this is not the brunt of the cold weather. Not yet anyway. This little chunk up here will probably stay across the northern parts of the country. So let's talk about the cold pattern and what creates the cold pattern. Well, you have to look at a couple of things. Number one, you're going to look at the polar vortex. That's usually centered up here over the polar and the Arctic regions of the country. Usually when the polar vortex is real strong, we see milder weather across the United States with the colder air locked up into Canada. And this is a pretty strong polar vortex. But there's another thing you watch. When the North American weather pattern goes into what we call positive phase, it'll get milder here along the west coast of Canada and into parts of Alaska. That's because a ridge of high pressure builds northward here, and it forces the jet stream to go up and over Alaska, and it crosses the polar regions, Siberia, the North Pole, and the Arctic regions of the country here, and that polar vortex just sends wave after wave of cold air to the south across Canada and the United States. And again, this is called a positive PNA, or positive North American weather pattern. It's just whenever, again, it milds up into the western parts of Canada and into Alaska, and it allows that colder air to drop. Now, if the polar vortex was weak, the polar vortex itself would drop into the United States, and it could really get cold. But that's not really the case right now. But if you look, again, this continues through the weekend, and this is going to continue, I think, off and on through the remainder of the month and even into maybe even early next month. Now, this type of a weather pattern, it kind of stretches out, but you don't see the split flow in the jet stream. You don't see a storm system. There are some waves of energy on the backside of the cold air, but you don't see a storm system itself cutting itself off and really developing into anything energetic. So this type of pattern really didn't favor snow, but it does favor cold weather, maybe some snow, maybe some wintry stuff in other parts of the country, but not over the central and southern United States. Usually any type of snow at this would be fairly weak here. And even though we might see a little bit of a warm-up through about January the 2nd, I do expect more cold air that's going to develop up here to drop down to the backside of all that. Who knows? Before it's all said and done, the pattern could favor a big winter storm. But as of right now, it's just mostly favoring cold, dry weather. So let's track these temperatures. Of course, when you follow the cold weather and you follow the contours on our maps here, you would associate warmer colors with what? Yellow, orange, reds, and colder temperatures with the blues and the light blues. And then you get back into some of these pink and magenta colors, purple colors. That represents the really cold stuff. So let's put all this into motion for you here. This is later on this week. And look at that, milder weather across the central and southern United States here. Looking nice, but there it is. There's your front on Friday. And that front's going to drop to the south and couple waves. First one kind of arrives on Saturday down at the south here, and then we continue to see just cold air funneling into the United States from the north here as we continue into next week and again maybe beyond. And at times this pattern is going to let up some, but in general a lot of cold weathers to the south. Now again, when you see this cold weather over us, over a good part of the country, remember milder weather out here, and that includes California. This type of weather pattern is not good for the wildfire situation out there. So if we take a look at the American GFS computer model, this would be this Wednesday, it's a couple days from now. Let's put all this into motion. As you see, no big winter storms. There are some snow showers back behind the cold air to the north here on Friday. And there might be some rain out ahead of it, mostly across the mid-south and the southeastern part of the country. And then there might be perhaps some snow on the back side of that here. But if you look at the weather pattern in general, this really doesn't favor a big winter storm. I know it's, the worst is on X or Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, when you see all these big accumulations and all these bright colors showing up with all the people posting all this stuff over there on social media. You see it on Facebook. You see it on everything these days. It's just the world we live in now, the digital age of weather, where anybody and his brother can claim to be a meteorologist and show stuff like this. But again, weather pattern in favor, at least looking at things now, big winter storms across the country. I mean, there still should be some little waves and some light snow maybe from time to time here, and there's perhaps maybe coastal sections might even see some precipitation. But again, in general, as of Monday, there's just nothing showing up on the maps here that looks all that concerning. But what is concerning, of course, out west, we continue to see high fire weather concerns from Santa Maria through Oxnard, California, Malibu, outside near Los Angeles, Santa Ana, all the way down to San Diego here. Low humidity and the ongoing fires along with breezy conditions. Again, as long as that cold weather is east here, I'm afraid the fire conditions going to remain significant there across the southwestern parts of California. Well, thanks for joining me. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to my social media pages. I hope everybody has a great week. We'll have more updates throughout the week on this developing cold situation.